Alright guys, today's video is going to be a generic company tier list, and there should be some info in the description, so if you want to read some stuff there, then you can just go down there. But I don't want to have too long of an intro, I just want to get straight into it. And starting off with our first company, it's going to be the Basic Mineral Mining Company. It starts with access to sulfur mines and coal mines, and it has industry rights to iron mines. It has a bonus of 10% fertilizer plant throughput, but that's pretty much useless. It's an S tier company. I believe it's the best generic company in the game, and I always establish it as either my first or second company due to how good it is. And the only company I've ever seen outperform it is the Basic Metalworks company, and that was only once. And every single game, it's pretty much my best company. It's the most profitable. It might just be like survivorship bias because I pick it as my first or second company, but it always performs well and it's never let me down. So that's why it's number one pick for me. On to the next company, it's going to be Basic Metalworks here. It starts with access to tooling workshops, and then it can have industry rights to either iron mines or steel mines. And it also has a 5% manufacturing throughput bonus. I'd say it's a S tier company because of the tooling workshops and steel mills, but it does have some building rights conflict with the Basic Forestry company, which is also an S tier company. I usually go for this company over the Basic Forestry company, because it has access to both tooling workshops and steel mills rather than logging camps and tooling workshops. I believe the steel mills are more profitable than the logging camps, although they are kind of more expensive to privatize, so there could be an argument that it's maybe fourth place instead of second place or third place, but you know, I'm not super specific on the numbers. The most important thing is just the tier it's in. The throughput increase is a nice bonus, but just the access to tooling workshops and steel mills, it makes it a top tier company. For the third place company is going to be the Basic Home Goods Company, and it starts with access to glassworks and furniture manufactories. Glassworks isn't really that good, it's mainly just the furniture manufactories, and the furniture manufactories are, I'd say, one of the most profitable buildings, at least throughout the whole game, and just consistently profitable. And it has industry rights to logging camps or lead mines, but the logging camps does have some building access conflicts with other companies. So I usually just pick the lead mines, and there's no other S tier or A tier companies that have access to lead mines from my memory. So I always just choose the lead mines, but you could technically choose the logging camps, maybe get a little bit more potential. And then the bonus is just 10% more loyalists for movements. That's kind of useless, like, it doesn't really do much. And it would otherwise be an A tier company, just from the lead mines and the furniture manufactories, but because it has access to glassworks as well, I decided to make it an S tier company. But with that being said, I'm going to move to the Basic Forestry company. It starts with access to logging camps and rubber plantations, and then it has industry rights to tooling workshops, so it does have conflict with the Basic Metalworks company, and I prefer the Basic Metalworks company, but the bonus for this company is actually not bad. It is kind of situational. It's a +1 infrastructure from population and plus 20% maximum infrastructure from population. So if you're playing a country that struggles with infrastructure, then I guess you could establish it. But like by the time 1860 or 1855 or whenever you get railways, it kind of just, the effect just doesn't really matter anymore. The bonus is nice, but it's not really like a whole game kind of bonus effect that really benefits you too much. It's just kind of small and nice to have. Then moving on to A tier, we have the Basic Colonial Plantations 1. And the reason this company is so good is because it starts with opium plantations, which is probably the cheapest and most profitable building in terms of like cost to privatize and the profitability of the building itself. It also starts with tea plantations, which is also good, and you can grant it industry rights to tobacco plantations. The bonus is negative 5% radicals for movements, which, you know, you can just completely ignore. It could be bugged and not even have any effect and you wouldn't even notice. That's like how small it is. But this is A tier, primarily for the opium, but the tobacco and tea plantations are a nice bonus. So if it was just the opium, then it would maybe be B tier. That was kind of tough to say. But it would be S tier, number 1 rank of the generic companies, based on the condition that the East India Company has disbanded, while India has stayed a subject of GB, and you have investment rights in GB. So it's a situational S and A tier, kind of depends on if the EIC is independent. If they broke apart, it's not going to be as profitable, but it's still good to have. If you're playing like China, for example, then I'd recommend this as maybe your second or third company. And even if the EIC stays as a company, it can still be relatively profitable. It's not going to be as profitable, but it's still going to be pretty good. It would maybe be a B tier in that case, where the EIC still exists, even after like the British Raj formed. But it's kind of fluctuates between S and D, so I just placed it in A. And the next company in A tier is the Basic Munitions Company. It starts with industry rights to munition plants and explosive factories, which there isn't much potential profit for that. The only reason it's an A tier is because of the military goods cost. So it should probably be established as your third company or later. And the reason I put it in A tier is because as a high infamy player, having this company, especially if I have a few S tier companies that are already making me a lot of reinvestment, so I don't really need to worry about that, then I would choose the Basic Munitions when you don't really need to worry about reinvestment. Just because of the military goods costs and because it's cheaper, you can afford a larger army, and then high infamy will be easier. For tall runs or low infamy, I'd say it's either a B tier company or a C tier. If you're playing super tall, you're not really building an army, then this company isn't really that good. It could kind of be good late game, but it wouldn't be that good like as your third company. Maybe it's like your fifth or sixth or something. And the number 7th ranking company for my tier list is going to be the Basic Food Company. And the only reason it's in B tier is because of the birth rate. If you're playing like China or India, it's probably S tier. You probably want it as your third company, maybe second company, something like that. But if you're playing as a super small country, if you're playing super migration heavy, then it's probably going to be D tier. So it is super situational from being S to D tier, maybe A to C tier, but you get the point. It starts with food industries, and you can choose between livestock ranches or wheat farms. Honestly, if you establish this company, I wouldn't even give it industry rights to anything. It's not going to perform well. The food industries might give you a little bit of profit and reinvestment. Because you can easily get migration, you just go total SEP, get multiculturalism, then this company is kind of not really that worth it. But maybe if you're playing later in the game, it's like 1900 or something, you just have a free company slot, you're not really worried about reinvestment, then it would be kind of decent. And the next company on this list is going to be the Basic Weapons Company. It starts with access to arms industries and artillery foundry, which is, it's kind of decent. They're not really that profitable. Maybe if you're like constantly at war and you're like high infamy the whole game, and you're always in a war, you always have this large army, and you're keeping the price of arms and artillery high, and kind of having a massive war industry, then it can maybe be an A tier, but I don't really see it being S tier. It could have access to automotive industries, which, it's super late in the game, so I'm not even going to consider it in this tier list. Or it could have access to steel mills. So if you're not choosing like the Metalworks company or the explosives company, and you have a free, and you still don't have a company that has access to steel mills, then this could be pretty decent. And the bonus is 5% army offense. That's kind of the only reason why I put it in B tier. Without that bonus modifier, I'd put it in C tier. But because it has that bonus, I kind of see it as B tier. And the next company on this list is going to be the Basic Paper Company. It starts with paper mills and it has access to logging camps. So if you haven't chosen the Forestry Company, then you can pretty much go for this company. And like the company that gives plus 5% birth rate, I'd only really recommend this company if you're playing as China or India, where you're kind of struggling with bureaucracy the whole game. And the paper mills aren't really going to be having that much potential for like maximum profit so that you can get more reinvestment. But if you're later in the game, you can still establish it. It's not really a bad decision. It's just not one of the best companies out there. And it's also situational. The next company on this list is going to be the Basic Silk and Dye Company. It starts with silk plantations and dye plantations, and then it has industry rights to textile mills, and then it also has a 10% influence bonus. It is kind of satisfying to have the silk and dye plantations feed into making clothes through the textile mills. Which is kind of nice, but it's not really that good. I think the Furniture and Glassworks and Lead Company is just straight up better than any textile company that exists in the game. That's generic at least. And the 10% influence bonus, it sounds nice, but you can just rival people, especially if you're below a major power. You can just have like 2,000 influence and not really worry about anything. So overall, it's kind of average, but it's not that good. It's not that bad. It's just kind of middle of the pack. So the next company is going to be the Basic Colonial Plantations 2. It starts with coffee plantations, sugar plantations, and tobacco plantations, and it has industry rights to tea plantations. It has a 10% colony growth speed, which is kind of nice, but it's not really that much of an impact. If you just want to colonize a little bit faster, then I guess you can establish it as your third or fourth company right around whenever you unlock like malaria prevention. The one that removes all the severe malaria and stuff like that, then you could probably establish it. But some of the buildings are mutually exclusive with the Opium Plantation Company, the Basic Colonial Plantations 1. And the Basic Colonial Plantations 1 has access to opium, which is really good. So ideally, if you're going to go for an agriculture company, you just do the opium one. Alright, in the 12th spot, we have the Basic Oil Company. It starts with oil rigs and it has access to coal mines as industry rights. So you're going to need to wait until late into the game to be able to establish it, but it does give the bonus of 10% state migration attraction. It's C tier because it conflicts with S tier companies for the reinvestment, so it's not really going to boost your investment much and help you kind of snowball. But it is useful, maybe it's like your fourth company or later, just to boost migration. But even then, multiculturalism and total separation is 100 times more important than getting any migration modifiers. And the 10% bonus is small compared to other bonuses from like journal entries, and the state of New York gives you 25% alone, so it's like not really that impactful compared to other modifiers you could possibly get. But if you are just migration maxing, if you just want to increase a ton of your migration, then it is a decent company to have. And number 13 is the Basic Fishing Company. It starts with access to fishing wharves and whaling stations, and it has industry rights to shipyards, and then its bonus is 10% more convoys and 5% shipyard throughput. The throughput you can just completely ignore, like it doesn't really do much, especially since the shipyards aren't really going to be that profitable. And the fishing wharves and whaling stations are severely limited in the max potential of building levels owned. It is kind of best for two countries specifically. It's best for Japan, and it's best for GB, where you have a bunch of overseas colonies and overseas subjects where you're not really connected by land, so it costs a lot of convoys. Because the companies aren't profitable, the bonuses aren't that good, except for the convoys itself. Okay, whoops guys. The oil company and the basic fishing company are actually C tier. I don't know what I said, but that's what I put before. Just because of like their nicheness, like the convoys, it's only good for two countries. The migration attraction, the modifier is not really that big. And then number 14 is the Basic Gold Mining Company. It starts with access to gold mines, and it has access to lead mines. The lead mines conflicts with the S tier company here, the Furniture and Glassworks Company, and then the industry rights to lead mines. I mean, if you take the company, then you're just relying on the gold mines itself. But that's not really why you would pick that company. You'd pick it for the bonuses of the 5% minting and 5% loyalists from political movements. And the 5% minting means it's not like absolutely horrible and useless, but it's still pretty bad. And then number 15 is the Basic Electrics Company. It starts with access to electrics industries, and then you can grant industry rights to either iron mines or rubber plantations. And the bonus is 10% power plant throughput. And I said it's a C tier. It's maybe good for the 5th or 6th company slot when you don't really need any more investment. You just want to bump up GDP. It also kind of doesn't really fit into this tier list very well because it can't really be established till later. And S tier kind of applies to companies you'd establish either first, second, or third. And then number 16 is the Basic Motors Company. It starts with motor industries and automotive industries. The automotive doesn't really kick in until later in the game, so I'm just going to ignore that. And then it has industry rights to steel mills. And then the bonus is 10% formation travel speed. The motors industries have low potential and are usually not very profitable, while the steel building industry rights conflicts with the Basic Metalworks, the number 2 best company in my opinion. And the bonus is kind of useless. I haven't really ever needed my armies to travel faster. And then 17th spot goes to the Basic Wine and Fruit Company. It starts with access to vineyards and banana plantations, and has industry rights to sugar plantations. And then it also has the plus 10% prestige modifier. But if you're going to establish an agricultural company, just do the opium one if you can. If not, then I guess if you're playing France or something, and you really just want to push up your vineyards a lot, then I guess it could be useful. But otherwise, it's not really that good, and the banana and sugar isn't really that good either. The 10% prestige is the only reason it's in C tier instead of D tier, and even then, you can just build some ships, or if you're landlocked, you can just build a larger army to increase your prestige. And number 18 is the Basic Fabrics Company. It starts with livestock ranches and cotton plantations, those buildings generally aren't that profitable. And then the textile mills is the industry right. If you are going to go for a textile mill company, just establish the basic silk and dye company. It gives you the influence and it has better buildings that kind of relate to the textile mill. It's not really in D tier because it can be profitable. It's just not really the best company for textile mills. And the first company in D tier is the basic steel company. I feel a lot of people are going to disagree with me here, but the main way your companies expand is not through construction, but through privatization, especially early game. So what's the use of 5% state construction efficiency if you're not really going to be building any buildings? I guess if you grant like industry rights away to everyone, and you're relying on foreign investment building in your country, then it can be kind of useful. In terms of reinvestment, it does absolutely nothing. It just means you construct a little bit faster. And it starts with access to steel mills, which conflicts with the Metalworks company. And then the industry rights is iron mines or coal mines, which interferes with the number one company in the game, which has access to sulfur, coal, and iron. So overall, every single building has conflicts with the top tier companies. So the only defining feature is a 5% state construction efficiency. But even then, you can just earn 5% more reinvestment with a better company and then just build more buildings. Alright, and then in 20th place, mainly just because of the conflicts with the top tier company, we have the basic metal mining company. It has access to iron mines and lead mines. Lead mines are used by the furniture and glassworks company, so there's a conflict there. Iron mines and coal mines have conflict with the best company in the game, in my opinion. So because it's conflicts with the S tier companies, you'd have to kind of replace it with an S tier company, but it doesn't perform as well because the lead mines aren't as profitable as the sulfur mines, from my experience at least. So the steel mill's throughput is kind of nice, but it only affects buildings in your own country. You're not really going to have that many steel mills in your own country. You're going to have them in other people's countries, so the bonus wouldn't even affect you. And in rank 21, we have the basic textiles company. It starts with textile mills, and then it has industry rights to either cotton plantations or silk plantations. And then the bonus is minus 10% radicals from political movements. It's just worse than the basic silk and dye company. And the radicalism bonus compared to the influence bonus is just worse. And it only has 2 possible building rights compared to the basic silk and dye, which has access to 3. I haven't really noticed radicalism to be a big issue in this game, or in this patch, I mean. And then in 22nd place, we have the basic shipyards company. It starts with shipyards and military shipyards, and it has industry rights to logging camps. Logging camps conflicts with the forestry company, so it's already kind of bad. And the shipyards and military shipyards aren't really that profitable, nor is that much potential there. And then the 5% navy offense is kind of like, it's kind of useless. Like you can just build a bit larger navy. Navy doesn't really cost too much. In 23rd place, we have Basic Agriculture 2. It starts with rice farms, millet farms, and maize farms, and has industry rights to rye farms. And then its bonus is 10% livestock ranches throughput. I'd say this company is very niche, and it's not really that profitable compared to other agriculture buildings, especially the opium plantations one. The max potential building levels is probably like extremely high, but the max potential profit is going to be super low compared to other agricultural companies. And then in 24th place, we have Basic Agriculture 1. It starts with wheat farms and rye farms and industry rights to maize farms. And it has the same bonus as Basic Agriculture 2 with a 10% livestock ranches throughput. And it's basically just a worse version of Basic Agriculture 2. And then finally, for the last company, we have Basic Chemicals Company. It starts with fertilizer plants and synthetic plants, and then it has industry rights to sulfur mines, and then the bonus is minus 5% unit supply consumption. Like with a lot of these modifiers, that thing could just be bugged and not affect the game at all, and you wouldn't be able to tell. And basically, synthetic plants are only really available to be built in the late game. And there's conflict of sulfur mines with the best company in the game, in my opinion, generic company. So in reality, this company is only going to have access to fertilizer plants. So just access to only one building type, and it's not even that good. So because of that, I kind of think it's just a waste of a company slot. You're not getting a good bonus. You're not getting any good reinvestment. It's just the worst generic company in the game. And that should be my generic company tier list, guys. If you guys have any comments or thoughts, or you played with some of these companies and you believe I was wrong, then, comment down below or whatever, boost engagement, stuff like that. But yeah, that should be it. So I hope you guys enjoyed the video.